The late 1970s. Picture a typical bar band arriving at a venue and starting to unload. A full Marshall stack, or sometimes two. A Hammond B3 organ weighing nearly 200 kilograms, plus one or two 70-kilogram Leslie cabinets. A Yamaha CP70 electric piano adding another 130 kilograms. Guitar stacks pulling anywhere from 70 to 120 kilograms, depending on the head's power. Road cases, wheels, roadies, and perpetual back pain. And then the Ampeg SVT arrives. A head weighing 43 kilograms and an 8x10 cabinet. By the standards of that time, this seemed like a perfectly reasonable rig. But the main point wasn't the weight. It was the fact that this amplifier delivered 300 watts of tube power. It was designed specifically for large stages, stadiums, and venues where full-fledged PA systems did not yet exist. It was built to stand on stage and push sound directly into the room without any external assistance. The history of the Ampeg company begins in 1946.
It was founded by Everett Hull, a pianist and bassist by trade. He invented a pickup for the upright bass that attached directly to the end pin inside the instrument's body. His wife, Gertrude, suggested naming the invention Ampeg, short for amplified peg. And so, the company's name was born. Hull settled in New Jersey and began working with Stanley Michael, who was selling a bass amplifier of his own design. Michael left the business rather quickly, and Hull renamed the enterprise the Ampeg Bass Amp Company. In 1955, a local musician and electrician named Jess Oliver dropped by the office to buy one of those very pickups. He installed it right there on the spot, and Hull, without hesitation, offered him a job. Oliver joined the company full-time in 1956, and by 1959, Ampeg was incorporated as a corporation with Hull as president, Gertrude as secretary, and Oliver as vice president.
By this time, Oliver had done the bulk of the work on the B15 amplifier, which was released in 1960. The B15 Portaflex, often referred to as the flip top, would go on to become the most recorded bass amplifier in the history of studio work. By 1963, the B15 accounted for 44% of Ampeg's sales. By 1964, the company employed 100 people and had to move to yet another, more spacious facility. However, much like Leo Fender, Hull never fully embraced rock music as a direction. He continued to make guitar amplifiers with a clean, even sound, while the market demanded something entirely different. Oliver, on the other hand, kept experimenting. In 1961, Ampeg released the Reverb Rocket, the first combo amplifier from a major manufacturer to feature a built-in reverb. For comparison, Fender did not introduce its first amplifier with reverb until 1963. Thus, from the very beginning, Ampeg was among the leaders in engineering innovation. However, demand was growing faster than the company could satisfy it. By 1966, the backlog of unfulfilled orders had reached $3.5 million. Oliver left the company, and Hull began looking for a buyer. In September 1968, Ampeg became a subsidiary of the Unimusic Corporation. The situation was similar to CBS owning Fender and Rhodes, or Norlin owning Gibson and Moog. But unlike Hull, Unimusic's management was eager to follow the market. They launched a new logo and a new advertising campaign targeted at rock music. They opened regional offices in Chicago, Nashville, and Hollywood. They also hired New York session guitarist and gear expert Dan Armstrong as a consultant. Armstrong worked alongside the company's lead engineers. It was this team that set out to create, in their own words, the biggest and meanest bass amplifier in the world. And then a coincidence occurred that changed the course of events. In 1969, the Rolling Stones arrived in the US for a tour. They planned to play through their high-watt DR-103 amplifiers brought over from England. As strange as it may sound, the amps were not rated for the North American power grid and blew up upon the very first plug-in in Los Angeles. The band's tour manager was left without equipment and reached out to Ampeg's Hollywood office. As luck would have it, there were 5 prototypes of the new, powerful heads sitting right there. Each housed 14 tubes and delivered 300 watts of power. It was something completely different. The Stones took the prototypes, and since the amps were non-production units, Ampeg sent their own technicians on tour to support them. These amplifiers were used for both guitars and bass throughout the entire tour. Ronnie Wood and Keith Richards later transitioned to the VT22 and V4 models, which were structurally very close to the SVT, and played them until '81, when they switched to Mesa Boogie. Bill Wyman, however, remained loyal to the SVT until the end. Richards and Wyman also played clear plexiglass guitars and basses designed by Dan Armstrong for Ampeg in the early 1970s, which further boosted sales. The experience gained from that tour formed the basis of the production model. The SVT was introduced at the 1969 Music Trade Show. The abbreviation stood for Super Vacuum Tube. Its 300 watts of power made this amplifier the ideal tool for the large venues of the early 1970s. Stickers warning about potential hearing damage from the sound pressure levels the system could produce were even placed on the amplifiers. The SVT quickly became the global standard for bass amplification in live performances. If you dissect the SVT's preamp, you will find much in common with the B15. This is not surprising, as the B15 was the company's first major success. The main difference in the SVT lies in the active mid-range control and the switches that filter low and high frequencies. Thanks to the active mids, the sound becomes more aggressive compared to the B15. This mid-range, combined with the high and low switches, allows the tone to cut through any live mix. Now, let's look at how the SVT changed over the years of its production. Essentially, there are a few main periods. The first type is known as the blue line, named after the blue silk screening that framed the knobs on the front panel. These amplifiers were produced from the very beginning in 1969 until 1970. The earliest models used 66146B tubes in the power section. However, these tubes proved unstable, and by mid-1970, they were replaced by more reliable and durable 6550 tubes. Shortly after this change, in 1971, Ampeg was sold to Magnavox, which was later absorbed by Selmer. The second version was called the black line, as the blue lines around the knobs were replaced with black ones. Like the late blue line models, they ran on 6550 tubes. By the late 1970s, the black lines around the knobs became rounded and smoothly transitioned into the knobs themselves. Around this same time, the amplifiers began to be equipped with a 3-prong power cord, and the polarity switch was removed as unnecessary. In 1974, Magnavox closed the Ampeg plant in Linden, New Jersey, and moved production to the Magnavox factory. In 1981, Ampeg was bought by Music Technologies Incorporated, MTI, a wholesale musical instrument distributor that wanted to expand its product lineup. MTI contracted the production of the SVT in Japan. Externally, MTI-era amplifiers are distinguished by black front panels with white lettering, black grille cloth, and a coarser vinyl covering. Spring-loaded rack ears were added, which was a long-awaited improvement over the rubber-covered metal straps of the early versions. Transformers for the Japanese assembly were sourced from Japan rather than from Chicago, where they had previously been made by Electrical Windings. In 1986, Ampeg passed into the hands of St. Louis Music. They received all the remaining parts from MTI, which was enough to assemble 500 amplifiers. In 1987, a limited run of SVTs was assembled in their own U.S. workshop. Each amplifier featured an engraved plate with a number from this small series. In 1990, Ampeg released the SVT2 and SVT2 Pro. In 1994, the SVT CL model was released, with CL standing for Classic. In 2005, St. Louis Music and Ampeg were acquired by Loud Technologies. Under Loud, the production of amplifiers and cabinets was moved to Asia. However, in 2010, Ampeg introduced the Heritage series, which was assembled at Loud's technical facility in Woodinville, Washington. The series included the SVT-CL and the 810E and 410HLF cabinets. These heads featured JJ tubes, which were selected and matched by specialists in California. In May 2018, Yamaha Guitar Group acquired Ampeg. Production of the Pro Series SVT continued in Asia, while the Heritage Classic and 50th Anniversary models were assembled in Union City, California. The Anniversary Heritage model includes the two most famous SVT preamp versions. The first channel reproduces the 1969 circuit, while the second channel is based on the 1975 Blackline circuit. The list of musicians who have played the SVT on big stages is virtually endless. Many, at one point or another in their careers, have taken the stage with an Ampeg SVT head behind them. Regarding the practical side of working with this amplifier in the studio, there is one nuance worth mentioning. Due to the noise of the cooling fan, one might think the head needs to be isolated in a separate room. But when the amplifier easily pushes 120 decibels of sound pressure, the fan noise simply gets lost and ceases to be a problem. The SVT was conceived as a workhorse for the stage, and that is exactly the role it has played for over 50 years. From the prototypes in the Hollywood office to the anniversary models assembled in California, owners changed, factories changed, countries of production changed, but the core idea remained the same. 300 watts of tube power, active mid-range, and the ability to fill any space with sound without the help of external reinforcement. The Ampeg SVT was built to stand on stage, hum, heat up, and push a bass wave directly into the room. Subscribe to the channel and suggest topics for the next videos.